Hey Luke, do you like Star Wars?
Yeah, I do,
Well,
Michael. What about it?
I bet the one thing you don't like about it is there's not enough of it. Well, I've got some good news for you, Luke. They are introducing, or they're announcing. This is from Variety. Star Wars announces new movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, from director Jon Favreau. Have you been a big fan of the Mandalorian TV show?
Nope.
Okay, well, but you are a big fan of Star Wars. That's important. So yeah, what do you think about this? Are you excited? Are you enthused at this news of new Star Wars movies?
Nope.
I like the fact that it seems like they always have they've had so much stuff in development.
These Star Wars movies, again, we're reviewing a movie today, which is an original movie. It's just, the contrast could not be greater between the cold open and the movie we're going to be talking about.
Wait a minute, Luke. Are you telling me that quality is better than quantity?
Not only is quality better than quantity, but quantum stuff is better than quantity. Because, quantum physics.
Good stuff. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are anticipating the Oscars, as we always are in January, by looking at some of the films that were nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And we're going to be starting off by looking at a film that was kind of a big deal. It was on a lot of people's radars, unlike your average Best Picture nominee. And that movie is Oppenheimer. So, Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Oppenheimer?
Sure thing, Michael. So, Oppenheimer is a 2023 epic biographical thriller film, written and directed by Christopher Nolan. So, yeah, we are doing this movie today because, of course, it came out last year. It's the start of a new year, and I thought we'd review this because you know what we're reviewing next week, Michael?
Well, we're reviewing that Stanley Kubrick film. What's it called again? Dr. Strangelove.
Yes, which is, of course, also about nuclear weapons for its 60th anniversary. And I thought, well, let's review Oppenheimer this week because it's probably going to get nominated for Oscars and it's probably going to win a bunch as well.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Anyway.
So, sorry, I was slightly wrong, right? Because they haven't actually announced... Have they announced the nominees yet?
No, they have not. The movie is based on American Prometheus by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. It's directed by Christopher Nolan. Screenplay is also by Christopher Nolan. It stars Cillian Murphy, or Killian, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Rami Malek, and Kenneth Branagh, and about 1,000 other people.
Yeah, I did notice there were one or two actors in this movie. Yes. I heard someone say it's almost like gets to a point where it feels like you're getting kind of references where it's just like there's so many people you recognize that it's just like it just takes over the movie. You're just like, oh, it's that person, that person, that person. There are definitely other movies like that, but it's kind of fun when it happens, I think. You're just like, okay, yep, who's going to be next?
Yeah. You look down the list, or the casting list, and it's insane. Like how many actors are in this movie, how many characters are in this movie. And yeah, people point out like, yeah, it is the ultimate, it's that guy, it's that guy. Because everyone, I imagine, wants to be involved in a Christopher Nolan movie, particularly one as good as this one. So I think it was easy to get like really good actors on board. The movie, Michael, was released on July the 21st, 2023 in the United States and UK. The same day, of course, as Barbie. Little known fact that.
Yes.
And what was the budget for Oppenheimer, Michael?
I don't know. Okay, so it's probably a lot because my understanding is they actually had to blow up Japan in order to make this movie. Okay, no, I'm going to go for 200 million. That seems like it might be a lot, but now I'm like, no, the studios have faith in Christopher Nolan. This movie must cost a lot of money, but yeah, 200 million.
Do you really think it would cost that much, though? Because, again, a lot of this movie is just people in rooms talking.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, and yeah, I okay.
So,
I was thinking about the actors, one of the things I was thinking, but I suppose, as per they would have wanted to work for a Christopher Nolan movie. It's not like a soulless... Okay, so let's
since it's the first guess of the year, I'll give you another guess. I'll give you a second chance.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, it still couldn't have been that low, though. So I'm going to go... I mean, I'll half it and go for 100 million.
Oh, look at that. You're spot on. Wow.
Hey.
Bang on. Look at that. Incredible. Anyway, how much did this make at the box office? Now, of course, Barbenheimer, that little known thing, meant that both Barbie and Oppenheimer were very successful. So, yeah, I'm expecting you to get close to this because, of course, the movie's success was very much in the news.
Yes, okay, so yes, that's a good point, and I do know this movie was successful. I'm not quite sure how successful means. I'm thinking above 500 million. That's what I'm thinking success means for a movie like this.
Oh, wow, really? Great. Well done.
Yeah,
Give yourself a fucking pat on the back for that.
But my question is, did this movie make $1 billion? Did this movie make close to $1 billion? Like, you're probably going to laugh at me and say, you idiot, it made $2 billion. No, but so there's still a pretty big range. I'm going to split the range down the middle and say this movie made $750 million.
It made $955 million.
Okay, I'm at least glad that I wasn't wrong that it didn't make $1 billion, but it did make as close to $1 billion, like so close to $1 billion that, some might say that I'm still kind of wrong.
Yeah. But anyway, you didn't go less than half. Anyway, Michael, did you like Oppenheimer?
Well, you seem very enthused by this movie. You said a few comments like that this movie's good and so on and such like. I thought this movie had a lot of talent to it. And obviously it's about a very interesting event. I don't know that I loved this movie. I think that a few of the stylistic stuff in terms of the way the story was told, I don't know that I fully understand the benefit that conferred to telling the story, which we'll get into. I kind of was like, I don't really know about the pacing of this movie, and I'm not just saying it's too long. So for me, it's objectively a good movie. And I'm going to give it, spoiler, a positive review, a positive rating. But it's not a movie where I would go out of my way to be like, yeah, this is great. And it's not a movie, for example, that I'd be particularly enthused about seeing more than once. Now, I know this, presumably, you have seen it more than once.
Yeah, because this is a great movie. This is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Honestly, this is incredible what Christopher Nolan has done creating this. It's so close to being a masterpiece, and it might actually be a masterpiece. Because here's the thing. Yeah, there are so many elements in this movie, so many things that he's trying to say, and he manages to say everything pretty well. And it's incredible that the movie is 3 hours long, and it's so dense. Not to be Rick Berman, of course.
Yeah.
But it's every single scene has so much going on.
Every frame. It's kind of like poetry.
Yeah, it is. It is like poetry.
Yeah, I think the Bhagavad Gita is technically a poetic book.
Yeah. Can you hear the music? Well, he could. He could hear the music. And what did he turn that music into? Death. Yeah.
Yes.
And see, there's a load of things like that which you can look into and be like, oh, yeah, this is really clever what Nolan has done. Creating these themes, these parallels between what happens in Oppenheimer's life and indeed what happens regarding, the nuclear bomb that he, of course, helps create. And yeah, it's a really great story, and I can understand why Nolan latched onto it because there's so many interesting layers here. And the movie overall has a very fast pace. Again, it's 3 hours long, but it's incredibly watchable, and you never get bored because of the fact that it is so fast paced. It's just genius what Nolan has done in this movie. And so yeah, I'm fully on board with it. And the thing is, you said you had some issues with what was it specifically? It was the scenes or the switching back and forth between one scene in the Senate hearing and then another scene somewhere else.
Yeah. So for me, one of the weird things is just the way that they have this kind of element of, like you say, it switches back and forth, which to me, logically, the reason you do that is to kind of have the movie end in this climactic, exciting way. Whereas, of course, I wasn't wild about the fact that you do have the big explosion at the 2 hour mark. And then I agree the ending is really good, but I kind of did get a little bit bored during the about 40 minutes immediately after the explosion where you got all the hearings and then, the last 20 minutes, obviously, where he's kind of really confronting the situation. That's good, obviously, and you kind of need to have that. But I wasn't for me, that bit. And again, if you're going to mess around with the timeline anyway, my brain would tell me, I don't know, maybe put more of the hearing stuff towards the beginning. And the other thing, I was kind of surprised that
but let me just say why he didn't do that. Because again, he wants to focus. So one of the movie's themes is focusing, the consequences of your actions and the aftermath of doing something, and then you have to deal with the ramifications. And therefore, he has created this bomb. The Trinity test goes off. That's the high point in the movie, and then he has to deal with the ramifications, which I understand. You could say, it's a bit boring, and it is. I think, well, I say it is. I can understand why you would think that, because I do think, yes, the 20-minute period after the bomb goes off, when Oppenheimer's in those Senate hearings. That is, probably I can see why, because you've had, not the Senate hearing, sorry, the AEC security confirmation hearing. That's what it was, because you have this bomb go off and it's like, wow, what a moment, and then you would think that would be near the end of the movie, but of course you've got 40 minutes to go, and like you said, the ending is really good. It's really fast paced, but then you have some more Senate committee hearing scenes and some more Oppenheimer scenes in that little tiny room, and it's like, oh yeah, you had this climax, and then okay, we've now come back down again. But I can understand why you're like, that's not the best. In terms of pacing, that's not the best, because you want the climax to be near the end, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can still appreciate what's going on in those scenes. Anyway, let's get into nitpicks, Michael. How many do you have?
I've only got one, and it's one of those nitpicks where it's sort of
a
thing the character says rather than well, it's kind of so basically. What's his face? Oppenheimer says that Alfred Nobel invented dynamite, and he's using it as kind of a reasoning for why, hey, making a bomb, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't win a Nobel Prize because Alfred Nobel invented dynamite. But of course, as everybody knows, Alfred Nobel invented the Nobel Prize or founded the Nobel Prize because he was so ashamed of having created dynamite and his role in creating dynamite that he decided to set up the Nobel Prize to reward people who use science for a good purpose. And I think it's kind of a nitpick of the film, although it could be, Oppenheimer being intentionally dishonest, because you'd think Oppenheimer would know that, being a science guy. So maybe he's being facetious.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it is a nitpick, because that, again, is an insight into Oppenheimer's character. Who this guy is. He's, willing to, to bend the truth a little.
Fine, call it a nitpick then.
Yeah, good point. To make his points, he's willing to do anything to sell, himself to this guy.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that, like, that's the obvious explanation, and I do accept that. I mostly just wanted to sound smart by pointing out that I knew about Alfred Nobel.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Like, this is who Oppenheimer is. Anyway, shall we get on to the plot of the movie, Michael?
Yes.
So, the film chronicles the career of Oppenheimer, with the story focusing on his studies, his direction of the Manhattan Project during World War II, and his eventual fall from grace due to the 1954 security hearing. Oppenheimer is the first screenplay written by Nolan in the first person, as he wanted the narrative to be conveyed from Oppenheimer's perspective.
Oh yeah, I heard about that, and that's like really interesting, definitely.
Yeah, well, it's about his life. It's called Oppenheimer. It's about Oppenheimer. And I think people going into it maybe suspected this movie would be more about the atomic bomb in general, but it's not. It's about Oppenheimer, as the title of the movie would suggest.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing that this movie isn't, because I've never seen this movie, but the movie The Imitation Game, starring Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yes.
My suspicion is, again, having never seen the movie, but I think it's the type of movie, like a specific type of movie, where it's kind of about the project and the characters are there, but the focus is on kind of the progression of the project.
Well, you say you've never seen the movie.
I've never seen The Imitation Game.
Yeah, well, it is a lot about Alan Turing.
Okay, well, so maybe I'm wrong. But definitely it's true that there is a type of movie where it's kind of like, we've got to do the project, and it's like, this is the project, we've got to, get this done. I'm sure there's like a few like kind of Apollo movies, like about the space race and stuff like that deal with this. This movie isn't really like that, which I think is obviously fine. I think it would be a more kind of conventional narrative if it was like that. But yeah, that was a difference I was noticing.
That's not as interesting if it's as conventional. Yeah. It's not as interesting as a character study of Oppenheimer, which this is. Now, at the same time, of course, we also have a look at Lewis Strauss and his Senate confirmation hearing, which, of course, he is denied by the Senate. And that, naturally, is something that Nolan found interesting, because I've actually got a quote about Nolan. From Nolan about this. So Christopher Nolan describes his reaction the first time he found David Hill's testimony. That's Rami Malek's character. Of course, Rami Malek, says the scientists, are not happy with Lewis Strauss and what he did, so therefore you should deny him from being in the cabinet. So Christopher Nolan says, when I found David Hill's testimony, where he just got up in front of a Senate committee, in front of the whole nation, and told the truth about who Lewis Strauss was, that's an extraordinary moment. His testimony was devastating because he literally talks about Strauss's vengeful nature. These things don't happen in real life, usually. It is the stuff of artifice. The Hill moment was crucial enough to make Christopher Nolan realize that Lewis Strauss could be a main character. And so that's why he's in the movie, because of that dramatic moment. And it's like, why in a movie about Oppenheimer is there a lot of focus on Lewis Strauss and his Senate confirmation hearing? Well, it's because of that, because this happened in real life. And I think Nolan is intentionally drawn to drama. That's the thing. He's intentionally or intentionally, like he really likes like dramatic moments, dramatic scenes, and I think that's why his movies are so popular, why they generate a lot of money and are also really good. Because they focus so much on drama, and there's so many dramatic moments in this movie. That's what he goes looking for, Nolan, when he creates these movies, and I think that's why he decided to put Lewis Strauss prominently in this movie. But yeah, obviously, apart from that, it's about Oppenheimer, about his life, and it's also a thriller at the same time. But there's just a lot of talking in rooms,
Yeah,
it's so fast paced, and there's so many things are packed into every scene, and that's what Nolan does in general, and why a 3-hour movie is okay. I don't know. Have you seen Martin Scorsese's new movie Killers of the Flower Moon?
No, I haven't seen that.
Well,
I really need to bone up on some of my newer, more recent movies. Ever since COVID, I literally have just refused to recognize that new movies are being made.
Well, that movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, is 3 hours and 20 minutes long. So it's longer than this by a bit. But the difference in pacing is incredible. That movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, is so much slower paced, and it's very deliberate, and it's very different to this. Like, the drama is almost taken out of Killers of the Flower Moon, because Martin Scorsese wants to prove a point, really. About how these Native Americans were just being genocided and nobody really cared. Apart from one scene's really dramatic when a bomb goes off. But apart from that, it's just kind of mellow compared to this movie, which is so fast paced and like so dramatic, and it's so funny that they're both like historical movies about terrible tragedies.
Where was Killer of the Flower Moon set? Because presumably it was set in like the West. Presumably it was the Southwest.
In Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. So not quite Mexico.
That's where the Osage are based, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
So it's about, again, a terrible tragedy that took place, almost 100 years ago. Very similar to Oppenheimer in that respect, and of course it's very long. But just how the movies are paced and how they are presented, it's so different. And I like both, but I can clearly see why audiences prefer Nolan's movies. Because, again, the fast-paced nature just means that, all of a sudden, like, we're going from this scene to this scene to this scene, and the dialogue is always so pointed and deliberate, and there's never, like, a wasted, like, sentence. Like, that's how Christopher Nolan writes his movies. And therefore, you are engaged thoroughly. And I don't mind what Martin Scorsese does, but if you can pull off what Nolan can pull off, then I think it's a lot more challenging to make all that work.
I think what's interesting for me is that actually a lot of the time, when the dialogue's fast-paced, it almost counterintuitively makes it feel kind of longer. Although I think for that, like, there has to be... So, for example, with, like, the hearing scenes, bearing in mind I was already kind of thinking, I don't really know what's, like, going on here. And then, like, I would kind of, and I know you shouldn't do this, but I would check, like, the runtime, how far we were through it, and I'd be like, oh, it's only been, like, 2 minutes. And there's kind of a sense of it almost makes it feel longer because so much has happened in that 2 minutes. And obviously I can completely understand the logic of it being fast-paced makes it feel faster, but there's also a way in which it being fast-paced can make it feel more its length because you're like, okay, a lot's happening.
I can appreciate that from like watching it and taking notes down, because I have taken the most notes down for this movie compared to any movie.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, like when you're watching a movie and you're like thinking about what's happening and so much is happening, you're like, okay, this is long.
But it's 3 hours and it constantly gets you engaged. And I understand like there's a brief period, like 2 hours and 20 minutes in, which we've discussed, where maybe you lose engagement, where the bomb's gone off, Trinity's happened, and you're like, all right, okay, so now, we have to go through more of these, security clearance hearings. Great. Maybe that's what you're thinking, but I'm fine with that because I'm engaged with the story, and there are, of course, themes going on which, are very interesting, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into themes. I think the one other thing I just wanted to say is that I also think the pointed dialogue is good. I think sometimes it can mean that the characters don't talk in a way that feels to me like completely natural, and obviously that's
the case with every Christopher Nolan movie. The characters do not talk naturally, but it's fine because that's the style, and that works. Like sometimes, of course, they talk naturally, but that is the style. And I think it works if it's very fast paced. Definitely there are like like obviously Wes Anderson's like a classic example of a director who you wouldn't be like, oh, it's not realistic. So I do recognize that. Yeah. Well, anyway, basically, this movie is about, of course, a lot of things, but of course, the masterful, I think, character study of Oppenheimer. And it's obviously, it's about nuclear weapons. Actions have consequences, and nuclear war is probably bad. Yeah, that's why I like. Why I like this movie, because I think a lot of people going into it were like, okay, Christopher Nolan has not... Like, The Dark Knight Rises is a very right-wing movie, and I know it wasn't written just by him, but given what he has done before in his work, specifically that movie.
Yeah, didn't you, when we reviewed The Dark Knight Rises, didn't you mention that specifically?
We have not reviewed The Dark Knight Rises.
Sorry. When we reviewed The Dark Knight, which also does have right-wing themes.
Kind of, yeah.
I'm sure I remember you mentioning the fact he was doing Oppenheimer, and you were kind of saying, because obviously with like Batman, the whole thing is like he goes outside the rules, but he does what needs to be done. And I think I remember you kind of speculating we might see that with Oppenheimer, where it's like, he's not the physicist the world deserves, but he's the physicist it needs right now. Yeah,
and the thing is, the movie has Oppenheimer say those talking points was like, well, the Japanese, they just keep on killing our boys. This can end the war. This weapon can be the weapon to end all wars. Being like hopeful and just incredibly naive. And the movie,
a real nerd.
The movie is like smart enough and like mature enough to recognize how stupid those talking points are, and in general how it's particularly in this country, in the UK. There is all when people talk about like nuclear weapons, it's just so childish. Like, would you push the button? I remember that was something that
Jeremy, you're going to mention. Yeah, Jeremy called. It's funny. I was thinking about that just recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this movie treats that question, would you push the button, with the sincerity and seriousness it deserves. Like, you're killing like hundreds of thousands of people, and it's not just a question on a like political talk show, like, oh, would you do this or not? Like, to indicate whether you're serious or not. You're talking about like committing a genocide, and if you don't say you're committing a genocide, then, well, sorry, you can't be prime minister. It's just ridiculous. Like, the
one
logic
of the things sorry, just to say, like, on that point real quick, because it's one thematic thing which I did really like, so I'll give the movie, because I've been negative about movies, I'll give it positive. One of the things I liked about the movie, and like an enduring theme that I thought was really good, because it was kind of reinforced, was like this idea of theory versus practice, and that's kind of touching on what you said there about how like you can talk about this theoretical scenario of like the morality in war and blah blah blah, but obviously you can't ignore the fact of like, well, you're actually doing a real action. It's not just about your political theory, it's about real harm.
And this movie is completely anti-nuclear weapons in general, which is fucking great, which is, again, not a given. And it also, of course, it's the character study of Oppenheimer is so good. And also it exposes, the US government, how they treated Oppenheimer, how they treated the scientists that worked on the Manhattan Project. How, again, there is no... The Washington power brokers are, as that is the phrase used in the movie, are completely separate from, I guess, normal people with normal morals. They don't... Like, Washington as a creature is just, horrific, and is exposed in this movie. And it's like, wow, this is a great Christopher Nolan movie. Like, he hit all the themes that I liked, and I was so happy watching this movie, because that's the thing. People have maybe criticized this movie for... is it really that great? Because this thing happened in real life, Trinity, the Manhattan Project, just because, the drama happened in real life, does that make the movie better? Well, what is the movie saying about these things? It is a condemnation of, nuclear weapons. It's a condemnation of the US government and what they did to Oppenheimer. And it's also a condemnation of Oppenheimer himself, like, what he did. And that is what elevates this movie, because you can just tell the audience what happened. You can just show what happened, but if you actually have a take on what happened, and it's a good take as well, again, those three factors, of course, I think are good takes, then it creates a great movie. What happens again throughout the movie is, of course, we keep cutting back sometimes to the Senate hearing with Strauss, and then but the crucial thing which I like is, it can get a bit disjointed, which it does, I would say, at one part of the movie, because there's so much cutting from different timelines, different, interviews. But like, for instance, we're in the Senate hearing with Strauss, right? And he said something, and that's then sets up Oppenheimer doing something at Los Alamos. And then Los Alamos, we have a scene in Los Alamos, and then something happens which then sets up a scene with Strauss at the Senate confirmation hearing. And that right there is how you do it if you're going to keep on intercutting different timelines like this.
Yeah, I think the interconnection, I mean, I imagine like there was a lot going on with the interconnection. I think there's probably more going on than I was able to pick up on, because, generally speaking, I think, there's usually a logic for what interconnects, and it makes sense that it would be kind of because thematically certain ideas are playing off of each other.
So let's get into the movie now. So Nolan wished to explore the phenomenon of delayed reactions, as he felt people are not necessarily confronted with the strongest or worst elements of their actions in the moment. And of course we can see that with Strauss too. He gets denied because of his actions, and Nolan, I think, shows us that in the very first shot. We see rain hitting the concrete, don't we?
Yes.
And what does that create, Michael?
It creates ripples.
Yeah, a ripple effect. Yes, and we see Oppenheimer staring at that. And of course, that's the case at the end of the movie as well. And, it could also be said to be like a nuclear bomb. I mean, the nuclear bomb is that, like we see this initial, massive explosion when we see the Trinity test, and then what do we see after? Or what did the characters experience after, Michael?
After the explosion, so they aren't they sick? One of them's physically sick. Like they kind of have. I mean, I don't know if this is what you're referring to. Okay.
No, right after. The explosion.
Sorry. They're excited, aren't they? They're happy.
There's a big explosion, okay?
Yes.
And then what happens after the explosion? Right after the explosion.
Right after the explosion, while there's the big bright light, and they're looking at that. And then after that,
they got knocked on the fucking floor because of the blast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what But when I was saying, like, it caused them to be physically, like, I was trying to come up with the word for it, and then they were physically blasted. But yes.
Yeah, no. I see what you mean. Yeah. No, so that's the thing. They see this massive explosion. Wow, look at this. This is incredible. And then the aftershock. I don't know what the specific term is, but
it's called a shockwave, isn't it?
That's it. There we go. There we go. Yeah, the shockwave hits them, and it knocks them all over. And that is the nuclear bomb doing what it does in real life. And of course, that is the perfect encapsulation of you're not confronted with the worst elements of your actions in the moment. Of course, that's directly after. But the point is, you can create something like, wow, this nuclear bomb, and then you get hit with the blast after. And it knocks you down like it does for all the characters. And then, obviously, we have the obvious conclusion that, these actions have consequences. And for Oppenheimer, again, what happened to him? He created this nuclear bomb. He was the father of the nuclear bomb. That's what he was called. And then his life got destroyed because of this. That's specific. You see this theme repeated over and over again, don't you, in the movie? So and we can see it actually with the scene where Oppenheimer poisons his professor's apple.
Yes, which is an interesting scene. I assume that must be a real thing that happened, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's unclear whether it occurred in real life. So he puts potassium in the apple and has a change of heart the next day, and Niels Bohr almost eats it. So there's no evidence Niels Bohr nearly ate the apple or had any involvement, but he might have done it. He might have done that, Oppenheimer. He might have done that and tried to poison his teacher. I don't know, but
it introduced that idea of kind of doing something recklessly that could create death and having to recognize the consequences. Yes,
doing something which feels good in the moment. It's like, I'm going to poison this guy's apple, and then you realize, like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah,
I also like the bit where he said, "How do you like them apples?" I thought that was quite clever line.
Yeah, and of course, in that scene, Niels Bohr, when he puts the apple in the bin, Niels Bohr talks to
the boring world of Niels Bohr.
Of course, and you can hear the music. That's what he asks. Sorry, can you hear the music? That's what matters. Not can you read it. Can you hear the music? Can you see where things in physics are going? Can you open your mind to new possibilities regarding the quantum world? And I think that's very interesting, because I think that is, another strong theme in the movie, which is, we'll talk about music specifically and how that is kind of bastardized. Yeah, but I guess
this movie has a lot of music in it, and like I feel like there's always something playing all the time.
Oh well, we're going to get onto this now. So because we get violin music, of course, as Oppenheimer imagines the possibilities of the new physics, when he's born. Again, I come back to the line, can you hear the music? Because that is so important later. But who composed the music, Michael, for this movie?
Well, I feel like it wasn't Hans Zimmer, even though Hans Zimmer, I'm right in saying, usually composes Christopher Nolan stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was Ludwig Göransson who composed the score after doing so for Nolan's previous film, Tenet.
Okay.
Nolan had advised him to use the violin for Oppenheimer's central theme of the film, with Göransson remarking that he had felt that it could go from the most romantic, beautiful tone in a split second to neurotic and heart-wrenching horror sounds. And I think that is perfect for this movie. Again, when the music or the score ties in with the theme, that is wonderful. And you said, by the way, that there's music throughout the movie.
Yes.
And I think that really helps.
Omnipresent, as they call it.
That really helps with the pace. I think that's one of the reasons why the music's...
Yeah, I would agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, because, I think that really helps. But basically, you get these heart-wrenching horror sounds which happen just after, these romantic, beautiful sounds. And it's this, it's very, I think it ties in with the theme very well, because it's what Oppenheimer, did to his physics, or did to physics in general. He turned something beautiful and artistic and amazing into a deadly weapon. That's what he did. Like, he kind of bastardized physics. Like, if there's a better term,
it's the what's it called? Like the Ian Malcolm quote. Like, what's so great about discovery? It's the rape of the natural world. You can corrupt things through like discovery, and
that's another good word, corruption. This is what he corrupted physics because of course you have that guy. What's he called? Like Rabbi, the fat Jewish physicist.
Yeah, he's got some kind of fat Jewish name.
Yeah. Okay. He says that I don't want 3 centuries of physics to turn into genocide. I don't want that to happen. But that's what, of course, happens. And you take something this beautiful and artistic, because that's the thing. Can you hear the music? What is music? It's art. And you hear Oppenheimer, or well, we don't know if he's hearing it. He probably is. While he's going, he goes to this museum and sees a Picasso painting, and we see them. We see afterwards him looking at or in his bed, like imagining, like physics or physics stuff. Like I'm not sure what specifically he's imagining, but the point the movie is trying to make is like this is an art form. Like what he's doing, like he's being expressive and creative, and like the physics is beautiful to him. What he's imagining, he's exploring, he's he's breaking new ground, and then all of this beauty is then turned into something very deadly. And again, this is why it's such a great theme, because there are more parallels, because what he did to his ranch in New Mexico as well is similar. What did he say, Michael?
Well, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. I know that he says he wanted to marry. I don't see. Are you talking about that he said he wanted to marry New Mexico in physics? Okay, yeah.
So he wanted to marry Mexico in physics because he loved camping there. So, if he could combine the two, he'd be the happiest man alive. He does combine the two, and then after he wants to leave Los Alamos, after he creates the nuclear bomb, he wants to leave it, and now Los Alamos will always be infamous. Like he turned the most beautiful place to him in the world, the happiest place ever, into the place where this nuclear bomb, this weapon of immense genocide was created at Los Alamos. Again, the complete corruption of something beautiful, and that's what he did. And that is another theme, that is another parallel which runs throughout the movie, which again I really like. And again, you can hear it in the score as well. So Cillian Murphy now, Michael. Let's talk about him.
Yes.
So Oppenheimer marks the 6th collaboration between Nolan and Murphy. The first starring Murphy as the lead, and I think he does have a bit of an Irish accent. I don't know if
I was going to say that. Yeah, I was like thinking to myself, he doesn't sound so. Isn't Oppenheimer like a New York Jew?
Yes.
I hope I didn't say the word Jew in a way that sounded aggressive there. Anyway, but like, and obviously, therefore, I'd imagine he'd sound a bit more like that. But
well, no, I mean that's his voice. I'm talking.
That is how he sounds. But yeah, no, definitely, I did also hear though that there were like a few moments where. Especially, I feel like, and I could be maybe I just noticed it more here because I was paying more attention to the performance, but it seemed like some of the moments where it's kind of being a bit more emotive and kind of like in the quieter moments where it's kind of like, saying, I want to communicate the gravity of what I'm doing it. But like, I kind of got a bit of an Irish twang there.
I got it specifically while he was at Cambridge in those first few scenes. Okay. Like when he's in the lab at Cambridge, you can really hear the Irish accent come through. And I was surprised how obvious it was. But I think after that, he got better. So that must have been, him just trying to do...
instinctively from being so close to his beloved England, made him want to be Irish.
Exactly. And of course, he I imagine that those scenes were filmed at the start. And then, of course, afterwards, he did more preparation. He got better at it. But I think in general... That's just a nitpick on the performance. In general, I think his performance is incredible. Like, he is Oppenheimer. Like, he embodies everything I think Nolan wanted.
Yeah. Physically, he kind of, like, he has looked down. I mean, obviously, Oppenheimer seems like a kind of skinny kind of guy. And definitely that is... Cillian? It is Cillian, isn't it? Which is weird. Cillian Murphy,
Yeah, and he's probably going to win the Oscar for Best Actor. That's probably going to be...
makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and I think he deserves it. Again, it's wonderful. Like every scene, he's so good. Like he's perfect for what this movie is trying to convey. He gets it. Like he gets the character Oppenheimer so well, and how much of a how much of an egomaniac he is, and how much of a coward he is at times as well. And how he's haunted and troubled by what he's done, and how he's just like he's basically given up at the end of the movie. Yeah, it's all so good from Cillian Murphy. So let's talk about the color of the movie, Michael. So
yes, because sometimes it's black and white.
So do you know why sometimes it's black and white and sometimes why it's not?
Is Oppenheimer's like hearing in the small room?
None of it is in black and white.
None of that was in black and white. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Because that's from Oppenheimer's perspective. So everything from...
I see. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Easy enough.
So everything from Oppenheimer's perspective, when Oppenheimer is the focus of the scene, is in color because it's subjective. Because as we said before, Nolan wrote this screenplay with Oppenheimer narrating what was going on. So therefore, everything is naturally subjective because it's coming from him.
Yeah. How did he write it in? I wonder what the script looks like for the parts where he isn't involved in it. It's just like, I heard that blah blah blah.
Well, it's just normal because he's not involved.
Or how about it's like he sees it on the TV and that's why it's in black and white.
I don't think there was a TV in the Senate room where Strauss was, talking to fucking that guy who played Han Solo. I can't remember what he's.
Aaron Oldenreich, is that his name?
That's it. Yeah, Aaron Reich or whatever. Yeah. So those scenes are in black and white because they're from Strauss's perspective to differentiate them from Oppenheimer's perspective, which is all in color because that's subjective. Even though the Strauss scenes are like subjective as well to some degree, but it's just to differentiate them, and that's why that's the case. So whenever you see it, like there is one scene where they're in this restaurant where they're talking about whether they should recommend to Truman that they start a H-bomb program. At first, it's in black and white because it's from Strauss's perspective, and then afterwards we see it's in color because then we see it from Oppenheimer's perspective. So that's why he did it. Again, it's not really that, there's not really a greater point to it, I feel like. Strauss, let's talk about him now.
Oh, wait, you know what? I have one question. See, here's one thing, though, and I feel like this isn't the case, and if it did, it would elevate the movie, but I don't think they did this, okay? When Strauss sees Oppenheimer speak to Einstein and he doesn't hear what Einstein and Oppenheimer, why did I forget his name? What they're talking about, is that in black and white?
Yeah.
That is in black and white. Okay, that scene. Okay, that's
well.
Good
Sorry, that's another scene, of course, where we see it from two perspectives.
Yeah. So in the one instance, it's black and white, in the other, it's not.
Yeah. Obviously, at the end of the movie, it's in color because it's from Oppenheimer's perspective.
Okay.
But then, so see, early in the movie, we see Strauss, and he's looking at the conversation between Einstein and Oppenheimer, and we don't find out what Oppenheimer says until the end of the movie because we're not seeing it from Oppenheimer's perspective. We're seeing it from Strauss's.
Okay. Yeah, I do like that. Then that's good.
Yeah, and Strauss obviously can't hear what they're saying. Anyway, so let's talk about Strauss. So Nolan also sought to explore the relationship between Oppenheimer and Admiral Lewis Strauss, former chair of the US Atomic Energy Commission, having been inspired by the relationship between Mozart and Antonio Salieri, as depicted in Amadeus, which came out in 1984. It's so good to see the dynamic at play because you have this practical, like self-made man of Strauss, like he says, who is off-put by like the arrogance of Oppenheimer. Their different personalities, cause the friction. I think, as well as, of course, Oppenheimer humiliating Strauss, of course. But yeah, you can see how, Oppenheimer, like, he just doesn't care for his brother's girlfriend, Jackie, who's a waitress, of course. He just considers people lower than him. Like, he has this just natural arrogance, which, of course, apparently a lot of scientists have, but he has it more than most, perhaps. And there is a scene where, the AEC are discussing, the Soviets and the use of the hydrogen bomb, and Strauss can't believe that Oppenheimer wants to, keep the knowledge of an H bomb away from President Truman. He's. I don't know if you remember this scene or remember this specific line because he's like, if we can build a H bomb, then the president should know. Like, he can't believe Oppenheimer is advocating for not telling the president. Like, Strauss is thinking, who does this guy think
Strauss
he is?
Strauss is a real simp.
Yeah. Well, it's not that he's a real simp. It's that who does this Oppenheimer guy think he is, that he thinks he can refrain from telling the president of the United States this information about the H-bomb? Like, who does he think he's, this god, this prophet? And like, yeah, he kind of does. And so you can see that's Strauss obviously hates Oppenheimer for humiliating him. That's part of the reason why. Part of the reason why Oppenheimer humiliates Strauss is because, again, like this is an extremely arrogant guy who is willing to do that at in public.
I do like. I mean, I did really enjoy the line, like the whole where he's like, "Oh, I can relate to being a self-made man. My dad was." It's like that's a classic. That's a classic Oppenheimer line right there.
Yeah,
I do agree. Like him being kind of a jerk, and it's obviously I can see what you mean about it being similar to Amadeus, because obviously in Amadeus, like Mozart's kind of a jerk. And Salieri is like the sympathetic character, but just because of like the way the movie. I mean, if I'd say it's probably not as exaggerated as Amadeus, which I guess makes sense because Amadeus is like really famously not very historically accurate, whereas this movie's obviously trying to be a bit more historically accurate. But yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and we haven't brought this up, of course. Oppenheimer calls Strauss a lowly shoe salesman. Sorry, and then Strauss goes, "No, just a shoe salesman."
Yeah.
Oppenheimer just doesn't respect people who are, who work those kind of jobs, and that creates a really good dynamic. You believe these people don't like each other, and that, of course, I think these scenes is really where Robert Downey Jr. shines. I would not be surprised if he wins Best Supporting Actor as well at the Oscars, because he's so good. Like, he described Oppenheimer as the best film in which he's appeared in, and I am not surprised.
I would imagine he could win Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, it's such a great performance. Like, at the end of the movie, when he gets so annoyed that he's going to not get confirmed by the Senate, and he's blaming Oppenheimer, and he's like basically cursing him and, just throwing him, well, not throwing him under the bus, but because he's already done that, but, just like calling him a fraud, basically, and saying, oh, he's the father of the atomic bomb, but, guess what? He didn't have to take any of the consequences, but he wanted to, because he wanted to be the most important person alive. And he's just eviscerating him, and it's so good from Robert Downey Jr. It's so fucking good. Yeah. Or maybe it will be Robert De Niro, actually.
I think it would be Michael Cera.
What was he?
He was in Barbie as Alan.
Okay, good. God, if Barbie wins anything, I'm going to shoot myself. So let's talk about another theme, Michael, because we talked about, I guess, corruption. That's the best way to describe it. And then, there are consequences for your actions. And there's another theme, which is, I guess, paradoxes. That's another theme in this movie.
Yes.
See, this movie's got so much going on, Michael. It's so dense.
So dense. This, because obviously you have, what's his face? Who's the guy who came up with the paradox? What's his name? Heisenberg.
Heisenberg, yes. So, of course, let's just start with the Nolan quote. I think of any character I've dealt with, Oppenheimer is by far the most ambiguous and paradoxical, which, given I've made 3 Batman films, is saying a lot. That was what Christopher Nolan said.
What a funny guy.
So the paradox theme comes up again and again and intertwines with the subject, of course, which is nuclear fission or fusion or whatever, and obviously the main character Oppenheimer. Because at one point Oppenheimer says, is light made up of particles or waves? And the answer is it's made up of both. That is a paradox. That should be impossible, but it's not. So that's a paradox. So the whole understanding of physics is based on this paradox. And again, why does Oppenheimer feel so guilty about the atom bomb? But why does he never apologize for it? How can he be so smart and be so brilliant, but lack basic common sense and wisdom? That eventually sees him get his reputation hurt. How can he run the Manhattan Project, but wouldn't be able to run a hamburger stand? These are like the paradoxes which you notice with his character. And you could say, oh, it's complicated, but yeah, like at the end of the movie, he seems so depressed at what he's done, but he never regrets it. He never says we shouldn't have done it. Like how does that make it? Shouldn't make sense, but this is who Oppenheimer was. Like, this is what he said in the security clearance hearing meetings. So yeah, I really like that when we have this theme, and you can see it with the plot. In physics in general, it's based on paradoxes, and you can see it with the character as well. The character is a paradox too.
Yes, I do like that. I think I like the moments where it's kind of like it shouldn't be true, and I think one of the things I like about that is, in general, I like when movies aren't too moralistic. Obviously, a bit of like moralism is good, but I think when movies sometimes just deal with the fact that reality is what it is, I think that can always be kind of interesting. And I think having that idea of cognitive dissonance, that's the word, isn't it? Which is kind of like a paradox, where you've got the conflict between the idealism of what should be the case and the like reality in somebody's mind. And obviously maybe it's a kind of contrived realism of, well, this is just how the world is. And yeah, I do think that element was good and kind of like thematically consistent in terms of being established through the kind of center of the film around like all the physics and stuff, but also the character arc as well. I do like that. Yeah,
it's great. It's fucking great, and I think that's one of the reasons why Christopher Nolan made this movie, because he noticed these paradoxes in Oppenheimer's character, and of course, physics, is based on things that shouldn't make sense. Apparently, again, I'm not a physicist, but
did you know there's like an idea in like physics? Have you ever heard about this? That like the sum of all numbers is minus negative a 12th.
No.
But like, and the crazy thing is, like, just to like very briefly, like physicists will actually tell you like, no, this is like an actual like sum that we use in like physics theories. Like there are equations that physics will write where they assume that the sum of every single number is negative a 12th. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. But I'll be like, well, it's the assumption, which I find like insane of like physics. They'll just be like, this is the thing that we all know doesn't make any sense, but it works when we have this assumption, even though this assumption is obviously nonsense, because how can you add every single number together and get a negative number? Yeah, it's physics, man. It's, like, I was just going to say, I don't know, but there's a certain person who was very suspicious of nuclear science to the extent that it arguably harmed his country's efforts in World War II. And sometimes when you look at a lot of how science is, you can't help but think that, you can't really blame him for being suspicious.
Okay, we'll get onto that in a bit, but anyway, Gene Tatlock now, Michael. So Nolan sought to portray the difficulties in Oppenheimer's life, particularly regarding his sex life. As such, Nolan wanted to candidly portray his affair with Jean Tatlock. He also wanted to explore Tatlock's influence on Oppenheimer's life, since she was a communist, which had enormous ramifications for him. Yes, it certainly did. Again, an example of, doing something good in the moment, having this affair with Jean Tatlock, which, as a known communist, well, therefore, you have to realise then, your life is going to be under a microscope. So if you want to work on something like the Manhattan Project, that's going to be difficult. Tatlock is the only person who sees Oppenheimer for who he truly is, of course.
Yeah. Basically, it speaks to the fact that he's kind of vulnerable around her, pretty much, and he's lost his facade because she has unmasked him. Which I think does make sense that that's the one moment where we see him in a moment of vulnerability. I did like the scene where he randomly starts symbolically banging her in the middle of his hearing. That was fun.
Well, I mean,
I think that was a clever moment, in terms of
obviously that was from his wife Kitty's perspective.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that in a bit. So, obviously, Oppenheimer brags to Tatlock about reading Das Kapital in German. And then of course they go back to I think his place, and obviously they're having sex, and then she gets him to read Sanskrit. Yeah. And I think that's what she likes about him, like his intelligence. But so that's why I think she's getting him to read this from her perspective. But this scene this scene also reveals something about Oppenheimer, and of course
he's a nerd.
Well, yes, but the Sanskrit line he reads is, of course, "I have become death, destroyer of worlds," which is the famous quote which everybody knows from him. And the thing is, that quote, again, I imagine you knew about this quote before watching the movie. Everyone, I think, well, maybe not everyone, but this is what I knew about Oppenheimer.
If anyone knows anything about Oppenheimer, then they know about this.
Yeah, he said, "I have become death, destroyer of worlds." Nolan chooses to have Oppenheimer say this while he's having sex.
While he's destroying the pussy.
Okay, but so why does Oppenheimer... did you have to say that quietly then?
I kind of did, just because, I don't know.
No, say it louder, go on. I'm sure no one will mind.
While he's destroying the pussy.
There we go.
You're welcome.
So Nolan recognizes, Oppenheimer is bragging with this quote. And he goes further, because Oppenheimer says it while having sex, of course, with Tatlock. So it's almost like masturbatory from Oppenheimer.
Yes.
That. And now Nolan can't have a scene with Oppenheimer masturbating and saying, "I have become death, destroyer of worlds."
Well, he could, and it would be... we would think Oppenheimer was very cool.
And so this line is meant to be viewed as impressive as well. He can read this, and of course he said this in real life, and he didn't actually say this, I imagine, while having sex with Jean Tatlock. But the reason why Nolan has got him to say this in this movie while having sex with Jean Tatlock is because he recognizes, Nolan, that Oppenheimer is bragging. This is Oppenheimer showing off. Oppenheimer, of course, he thinks of himself as Prometheus. At one point, Niels Bohr tells him that he is, and we see. The fire and the quote about Prometheus being tortured for eternity, and then Oppenheimer opens his eyes, and that's right at the start of the movie, of course, indicating he was thinking of that quote. He thinks he is that important. He thinks he is death, destroyer of worlds. Even when he insults himself, he portrays himself as brilliant and important.
Have you ever seen the Come Town bit about him saying that quote?
Yes.
It's just the idea that he's when he says it, when they're doing the testing or whatever, and then he just says it, and then someone is talking over him, so he has a full start, and then he says it again. He's like, did everyone hear that? But it is funny because it does make him a real dweeb.
Well, that's the thing. Christopher Nolan and Come Town recognize the truth about Oppenheimer, because it's the truth. Come Town can come to the conclusion, and Christopher Nolan can. It is a masturbatory, self-important line. You think, oh, he's become death, destroyer of worlds. Oh, that must be so hard for him. But no, who this guy is, who this guy is in this movie. And he says it while having sex with a woman. He's got into this position because of his ability to read other languages, or his intelligence, how important, how brilliant a guy he is. Yeah, this is him fucking bragging. It's wild that, when I first saw that, I was like, wow, Nolan got Oppenheimer to say the famous line in this moment. but it's absolutely the right moment for him to say it if you want to communicate. Yeah, this is him showing off. Yeah, and that gets to the heart of his character again. Even when he is insulting himself or like degrading himself,
like being kind of self-deprecating.
Yeah, even when he's saying, "Oh, look at what a horrible person I am," he's saying, "I am brilliant." You know?
I feel like there's like I've definitely heard like people kind of point out before there's sort of a an arrogance to like being judgmental or like there's a conceit to it, and I think that's definitely true.
Well, yeah, I mean he is incredibly arrogant, and yeah, that quote is arrogant, and best way to show that is him while he's saying it, he's having sex with Gene Tatlock. Wonderful stuff from Nolan. It truly was an inspired decision. So, in 1938, nuclear fission is discovered, with Oppenheimer realizing it could be weaponized. Of course, he's excluded from these weapon discussions as he, fraternizes with communists, shall we say. And it's interesting, the line, "Theory will only take you so far." What did you say that line meant, Michael?
I don't think I said it meant anything exactly, but like just in general, it kind of has to do with the kind of disconnect between the two things. Like I don't think I really elaborated on that, but in terms of what it's saying, like the surface level thing it's saying is I think a pretty decent point to introduce, that you can kind of sit there and be like, well, our equations say blah blah blah, but Jean-Paul Sartre famously said how things withstand the gaze, and what he was saying there was not about homosexuals. It was basically part of this big kind of philosophical treatise where he was pretty much talking about how there is a fundamental difference and an uncrossable gulf between conceiving of something and actually experiencing that thing, is basically what he's saying, which is, of course, kind of what the movie's getting at there. So it is a philosophically rich point that, there's a big difference in saying, well, this is what it could be like, but actually doing it is a big, a big gulf that you're crossing.
Yeah. I mean, that is the superficial thing that, or the superficial meaning to the line that, of course, I think many characters say that line and mean it in a superficial way. But what is interesting is I take the line another way. Theory will only take you so far. I think that is said often as it refers to Oppenheimer's career. Like, theory will only take you so
like
far.
In order to kind of become more famous, he had to actually physically do something.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I like that idea. So it's kind of like his way of leaving his mark on the world.
Yeah, so Oppenheimer, of course, he has this massive ego. He thinks he's brilliant. He wants the applause and the adulation because of this ego. But he realizes he can't get it unless he is allowed to work on practical projects, like, for instance, the Manhattan Project. And that is, of course, one of the reasons why he shelves his commitment to these communist ideas that he has. Theory will only take you so far, and, of course, he wants to be a star.
That's a good rhyme.
Yeah, which I wrote and realized it rhymed. And what does he study, Michael? Stars.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like poetry.
It rhymes. What a great... Yeah, I genuinely think that's why this line is said so many times. Theory will only take you so far. It refers to Oppenheimer and his career. If he wants to be this great man, this important man, he has to, get practical. And therefore, well, he has to drop his communist beliefs. And, of course, another step to dropping his communist beliefs is his relationship with Kitty, his wife. So obviously he's teaching at Caltech, and then he marries Catherine Kitty Puning, a biologist and ex-communist. Again, he brags to her that he knows what quantum physics is. I love that. When she says, "Oh, quantum physics is baffling," and he goes, "Yes, it is. Now let me explain it because I know everything." Yeah, he doesn't go, well, no, it's not that hard. Let me explain. No, he's just like, yeah, it is baffling. And guess what? I know what quantum physics is. So you want to have sex with me now, don't you? Again, I think that's the implication. It's such a great line, and she is very interesting because obviously, along with Oppenheimer's ambitions, she is what spurs him to drop his ideological beliefs, if they are beliefs in the first place. Again, what does this guy believe? That's one of the questions that this movie, poses. Probably nothing, really. But so she says ideology got her ex-husband killed, of course. He died for nothing, in Spain trying to fight some fascists. And, she says it's a pragmatic point of view, her point of view. It's not reductive. And that is what Oppenheimer wants to hear at this stage of his life. He wants to be pragmatic. Principles have to be done away with. So do you agree with that, Michael?
I do. I think it would make sense that they have that kind of alignment of views, and that there is an element of it's a marriage of kind of convenience. I think that does make sense. I would agree with that.
I wouldn't say a marriage of convenience. I think that's the wrong way to put it. It's like Oppenheimer really latching onto this woman who is saying basically exactly what.
So yeah, it's kind of, it's like a narcissistic thing. It's like it's almost like he likes it because she's reflecting his own ideas back at him in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's trying to justify to himself, like, yeah, I should maybe drop these principles, and she's saying, yeah, be pragmatic, do that. And of course, she praises him, and Lawrence says to him, you're not just self-important, you are important. And again, that praise is one of the reasons why Oppenheimer joins his side. And of course, he then repeats what Kitty said, and says, I need to be pragmatic. Yeah, I get it now. Like, and of course, this stage of the movie, Oppenheimer, it's all about him transitioning from basically being this guy who has these communist beliefs to how all of a sudden how is he dropping these beliefs? But of course, well, did he have them in the first place? Because he was never a Communist Party member, which he repeats over and over again. And therefore, how do you get from that stage to this? Well, people tell him what he wants to hear. You're so important. We need you. Just be pragmatic. And of course, theory will only take you so far. If you want to be, this great man of history, then, well, again, his own ego demands that he drop these principles. So all of these things, this contributes to his character arc, and this is what this stage of the movie is about. And then, of course, he joins the Manhattan Project, and from my point of view, Michael, I can completely understand, given these scenes, given what's happened to him, why he would do this. Like, I am convinced.
His motivation.
Yeah. So you agree, of course?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that is accurate. It's definitely, like, the movie definitely makes a point of stressing that a lot of what he's doing is kind of self-aggrandizing and driven by his own ego. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Driven
by his own ego, and then his new wife, gives him that little push, like, yes, you can actually, just be pragmatic, as she says. So, U.S. Army Colonel Leslie Groves recruits Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project to develop an atomic bomb. Oppenheimer, who is Jewish, is driven by concern that the German research program, led by Heisenberg, might yield a fission bomb for the Nazis. The thing is, Wikipedia says that, and I'm sure Oppenheimer somewhat cares about that, but I think he's mainly driven by, he wants to get on this project to prove to everyone that, he can, well, this could make him. He says, of course, like you mentioned before, Michael, this could get him a Nobel Prize, like that's what he wants a Nobel Prize, like I think many scientists do, and he's like, hey, maybe this is what gets me one. Groves wants someone who is egotistical, of course, because I think that's the only way he thinks this might get done. Like someone who is this performer, who is able to sell this thing to the scientists, who is a bit of a showman or a salesman. So when all those criticisms of Oppenheimer, maybe apart from like womanizer, like they're really positives. Because if you want this guy to be, if you want a guy to run this program, to be this director, he has to be someone like Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think obviously they have kind of a line about how, like, what's his face, Matt Damon wants to like control him. Because he has these kind of negative aspects. But yeah, I also think it's true that he recognizes that you need a certain personality to push for something, especially if that thing is going to be kind of like have this kind of ambition to it, where you're kind of just doing, you got to be crazy. What's that thing they say in Apple? The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the only ones who will.
Yeah, exactly. And Oppenheimer is that, I don't know, crazy, but he is that egotistical. Again, I think if you're from Groves' perspective, yes, you want someone who you can control. And because of his communist sympathies, that means Oppenheimer is easier to control. But also, you have to realize, okay, I'm asking these scientists who, again, you see it with Rabbi, the fat Jewish scientist, that's the best way to refer to him.
Yes.
He's saying, I don't want physics to, 3 centuries of physics to turn into like a deadly weapon. So I think Groves understands that scientists may be opposed, being on the Manhattan Project or working on the Manhattan Project because of this belief, because he's asking them to create a bomb which could kill, thousands of people, which of course it eventually did. So he's like, well, I need to get someone as the director who is so like driven by ambition. He might not be, the best man for the job, but this is who I need, because then all the other scientists are looking up to him and saying, hey, one of our own is in the director position, maybe, and he can sell everything to the scientists. And yeah, if he's driven by his own ambition, then guess what, he's not going to be concerned about the death and destruction that may be caused by his actions. And as we see in the movie, he wasn't until after the fact. So yeah, I think this movie displays that very well again. Do you like the scene in Los Alamos where he's wearing the uniform?
Yeah, and then he just takes it off because like someone's like, oh, don't do that, you twat.
Yeah, he's just such a chameleon. He just doesn't stand for anything. He's like, oh yeah, well, we should wear the uniform because, that's what Groves want. And then fucking Rabbi says to him, you look like a prick or whatever. Take it off. Like, you're a scientist. What are you doing? And then in the next scene, he has it off. then we have the biggest, I think, example of his lack of principles, which is this Chevalier incident, which is referred to over and over again. And the first time I watched it, I thought, wait, who is Chevalier? Because there's so many people in this movie. I was like, which one's Chevalier? Oh, yeah, he's the guy that, of course, he's called like Hope Chevalier. He's the guy, of course, who takes in Oppenheimer's kid when him and Kitty can't look after the kid anymore. So is there a bigger example of Oppenheimer's like cowardice or lack of principles than, right, this guy, right, he apparently says to Oppenheimer, you could go around official channels and maybe commit treason if you want to. And, he doesn't actually come out and say it, but, that could be an interpretation. And again, Oppenheimer says no, and that's the end of it. There's no more to it. Oppenheimer absolutely does not have to go and tell the US military this happened. Like, he does not need to do that. And, of course, this guy looked after his kids when he was having issues. Like, he completely screwed Chevalier over in a just incredible way. Of course, we see how determined Colonel Pash is, played by Casey Affleck, to, get these communists. Yeah. Can you imagine, like, a bigger, like, backstabbing moment than that?
No, yeah, I think it shows that there's just like an extreme level of cynicism. It's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's like a part of a larger sort of vibe of the movie. But I think it is good to have those moments where it just really drives it home. And just like, that's kind of taking it to the next level. It's really extreme.
Yeah, you're right. It really does drive it home. Yeah, like how just unprincipled this guy is. How he's willing to, bend over for everyone. And even when he's, admitting to Pash what happened, he doesn't fully commit to it and tell him about Chevalier. These people have given me my security clearance. Okay, like I'm going to help them a bit because they've helped me. Again, just completely abandoning, any, his friends basically. And that is, definitely abandoning his principles. We have these calculations from Teller. Where he says, we could, they could detonate a chain reaction that would ignite the atmosphere and destroy the world. This is interesting because I didn't know about this, and this is one of the moments that I think Nolan really latched onto, which I saw in an interview. Again, he searches for these dramatic moments. This is one of the moments he found like fascinating. Like they were building this Manhattan Project or this nuclear bomb and not knowing that they could destroy the world. And did you know about this, Michael?
I think I had heard about it, that like when they were doing it, they were like worried that, if you've got a chain reaction, I mean, how do you know when the chain reaction is going to stop? I think I do remember having heard about it at some point.
Okay, yeah, this is like, we have a flash forward now to the AEC meeting. So Teller's hydrogen bomb receives interest amidst the Cold War. So I think this is the one point in the movie where it cuts around too much, because this part of the movie is all about, the AEC meeting with Strauss and Oppenheimer. And, Groves is trying to keep the compartmentalization going. There you go, that's a long word. And then we are also cutting back to the hearing in 1954 with Groves being asked if he would approve Oppenheimer's security clearance, whether, Oppenheimer maintained relationships with communists. And then, of course, we get the Gene Tadlock scene, the scene where he talks to Groves on the train after discussing the Chevalier incident with Pash. Then Pash in the security clearance hearing with Oppenheimer. Whether Oppenheimer was talking with communists or not, or taking security, seriously. Of course, it mattered a lot regarding him being railroaded. But it's a lot of cutting back and forth in these moments. And yeah, I don't know if this is maybe the one moment in the movie where I said before where it cuts too much, where I'm trying to work out, wait, where are we in the timeline? What point is the movie trying to make? Well, it's trying to tell the whole story about how, Oppenheimer was, basically constantly being questioned because of the communists.
So yeah, I imagine that's probably the reason why it does get a bit more just like you're cutting to everything. I imagine that's the reason, yeah. Yeah,
I guess so, yeah. But anyway, let's talk about Casey Affleck, who of course plays Colonel Pash. And he plays it very well. I guess this guy's an absolute psychopath in the movie. Like Matt Damon just describes what he's doing. And like he's just so intense, Casey Affleck, in these scenes. And and he sounds like a psychopath. And
he comes across very kind of intimidating.
Yeah, and there was a lot of cameos from actors, and this might be, I don't know, the best cameo. That's what people were saying, and I completely understand. Do you think there was anyone who could rival Casey Affleck as a cameo in the movie?
Not really. No, yeah, I do think this was really strong. And yeah, Casey Affleck, great guy.
Yeah, great guy. You obviously know about the allegations.
I've heard there's some controversy around that, but to be fair, everything since every time I've seen him in a serious role, he's been a pretty good actor. So well done him.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, well, everyone has allegations.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, true.
Yeah, Thank God Jonathan Majors wasn't playing Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Thank God. So, so we end the security section, / anti-communist section of the movie for now, and then they get Niels Bohr, obviously from Copenhagen. They bring him to Los Alamos, and what instrument is Jack Quaid? I don't know what character he plays, or what physicist. Do you know what instrument he's playing at the Christmas party, Michael? Did you catch? I'll tell you if you don't know.
No. Yeah.
Drums.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And
Drums
we'll get to
in
that.
the deep.
We'll get to that a bit later. So Niels Bohr, of course, tells Oppenheimer this will be a new weapon, a weapon that will change the world forever. There is no going back. And yeah, of course, I think Niels Bohr is really the moral center of the movie. I don't know. Like, he, of course, talks to Oppenheimer at the start of the movie about, if you take the, the snake. Oh, sorry, what does he say? Pick up the rock and reveal the snake. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? And if you are ready for it, great, but you have to be ready for it. And it's clear Oppenheimer was not ready for it, I think. Is the conclusion.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, Niels Bohr fully understands like the implications of creating this weapon, which again Oppenheimer I think is too blinded by wanting to succeed to understand until afterwards, and then afterwards he understands. But of course by then it's too late. So let's talk about justifying the use of the nuclear weapon, because this is what Oppenheimer does then for like the remaining bit of the movie before Trinity. Because obviously Hitler dies in 1945, and some scientists question the bomb's relevance through the Slizard petition. I think I said that right.
It was weirdly spelt Slizard.
Yeah, Oppenheimer believes it would end the ongoing war in the Pacific and save lives. Again, that's what he says. Does he actually think that? I don't know. Like, it's a project he's working on, so he morally justifies it. Again, he says he'll relay the concerns of Slizard in the meeting. Of course, Rami Malek hands him this petition, and he just swats it to the floor like, no, come on, this petition is worthless, to me. Like, don't worry though, I'll relay your concerns. And then he starts to relay the concerns. Do you remember what happens? And then Matt Damon just cuts him off right away. He really doesn't put up much of a fight, does he? It's like, well, some scientists have, they have concerns about the use of this nuclear weapon, and then Matt Damon just like, and these scientists will be gotten rid of. Don't worry.
They're very just matter of fact about not caring about other people's objections. Specifically in the scene, Oppenheimer is shown to be like a coward. He can say to them, "Hey, I did relay my concerns, or I tried to, but they weren't interested, and that's it. Well, I've done the bare minimum. That's it. I want to maintain my position in this project." And I want to receive, the glory and the acclaim, so I'm not going to rock the boat. I think that's what he's thinking. So, of course, then we have, Nolan, right, he searches for drama, and that's why the scene is so interesting, because you have a group of people casually talking about which 30,000 people to kill. Yeah.
And then Henry Stinson, who is the Secretary of War under President Truman, he says, we can't, drop this bomb on Kyoto because of its significance to the Japanese people. And what other reason, Michael?
Well, they honeymoon there. Well, they went on a honeymoon there.
Do you know that line was improv, by the way?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me he didn't actually say it in real life? What do you think about it? If it's based on real life, everything's improv.
No, he did say it in real life, the character, but it wasn't in the script. And then the actor, I forget who he is, did some reading on Henry Stimson.
Oh, that's actually quite interesting.
I was like, he says this in real life. And yeah, his wife honeymooned there with him, of course. Not his wife didn't go on her own. And yeah, it's just so ridiculous a moment. Like, it's a magnificent city. So yeah, we won't murder 30,000 people who live there, because me and my wife went there.
Yeah.
It's just like the callousness of this moment, I think, is just the shocking, just, it's so casual, Michael, and that's what's shocking about it, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's callous, but also it's kind of realistic. Like, you'd imagine that actually is how the conversation went. Like, I 100% believe that they were kind of just thinking about it in these terms of like, well, like, it's kind of a utilitarian calculation of which one just makes the most sense, which is kind of a weird way to talk about doing that thing of, like you say, murdering 30,000 people.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You said it's realistic, and that's true because, Nolan, I think, again, he searches for drama. That's what interests him. And the reason why this scene was in the movie like it was is because, it's realistic. And this is how callous they would have been. And this is actually how it went down. And isn't that shocking that this happened in real life? Again, it's a condemnation, of what happened. And that's why, again, this movie's so good. Because, I think having things based having movies that are based on things that happen in real life, it doesn't necessarily mean that the movie's better, But if the movie is, again, having a take on it or making you realize something about, our history or about America in general, then, that can be eye-opening, then yeah, that's great, because you want to open the audience's eyes and, like, inform them of, what happened in these situations and make them realize, oh, are we maybe, or is America in general? Yeah, are we monsters, basically? And yeah, do you remember the story that went around before this movie came out about the filming of the of this bomb?
That he actually did an atomic bomb strike. Yes.
Yeah. So many fans, aware of Nolan's preference for in-camera practical effects, thought he forgoed the use of CGI, and therefore he had set off a real atomic bomb. Nolan later remarked that it was both flattering and scary that his fans would think that of him. A great moment in general, though. The blast, the music, and then the silence.
Yes.
Can you hear the music? And then you can't, because then you're hit with the ramifications, of what you have done, what you have created, and then the after effects of the bomb. Obviously, ties in with the theme. That is the backlash. That is the shockwave, which, of course, many of these scientists who were working on the project ultimately, didn't have good lives after this this project, and including Oppenheimer, right? So, but in general, the Trinity test, again, getting away from the theme for a second, the Trinity test is special. I remember, of course, this movie came out in IMAX, and I saw it in IMAX, and saw it in 70mm IMAX, and this was the scene where you really appreciated seeing the movie in 70mm IMAX. Did you see it in IMAX, Michael?
No, I didn't. I was thinking, I probably... There's some movies that I just couldn't be bothered to see in the cinema, but I kind of hope at some point that there is an option to see them in the cinema, because just because at some point they should just have a moment where, like, all these movies that you should probably have seen in the cinema, we're going to show them all again, and I'm like, okay, good.
I think Oppenheimer is back in cinemas this week.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So maybe you could see it and actually put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, I could actually.
Or maybe
when I said that, I wasn't. Yeah, I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to have to actually, live by that. But no, yeah, I didn't see it. But yeah, I can 100% imagine that the whole nuclear bomb of things would be the most exciting moment to see in IMAX.
Yeah, that's the thing. The movie builds up to the Trinity test. You know it's coming, and then again it happens 2 hours in, and like you said, normally that would be the climax, but then Nolan really wants us to see the aftermath. So then at the celebration, of course, back at Los Alamos, we see Jack Quaid playing the drums again, Michael. Now, I don't know about you, but again, can you hear the music? That is what a line I have been repeating. And the thing is, music, it is, again, artistic and beautiful. That's what it can be, and that's what Oppenheimer thinks of physics. And that is what we see at the start of the movie. And then, of course, we talked about how it's corrupted. That is a theme of the movie. And perhaps we can see this in the instrument that Jack Quaid's character plays. Because I don't know, maybe I'm going too far here. Perhaps I am. So when soldiers march into battle, right, did they play an instrument, or did back in the day? When they're marching, Michael?
It was drums, or sometimes trumpets.
Yeah, well, it was the drum. And isn't there like a phrase like the drumbeat of war or something? I
think I know what you're talking about. I just can't think. There definitely is some kind of phrase. Is it the drumbeat of war or something like that? There is something called, so that people just talk about war drums. That's definitely a thing. Okay, I'm looking at. There is something that says the drumbeat of war. I don't know what it's about, but definitely somebody at some point in life had said the drumbeat of war. So there we go.
Yes. So basically, I think drums can be associated with war. Basically, I think that's the case. And again, I think this is how this music has been corrupted. These beautiful violins, that were playing when Oppenheimer was thinking about, the quantum world, and that has now been, again, I'll say that word one more time, corrupted into, the drumbeat of war. This is what the music is now. It's the drums of war. That is what the music has been turned into. Again, it's a different kind of music, but it's it is a music with a very different meaning, and it's very different symbolically. Do you think I'm going too far there, Michael, with that? Because again, we see that shot of Jack Quaid with the drums. Like, why did Nolan include that in the movie? Maybe it's because his character, maybe the physicist in real life really like drums, but the drumbeat of war, I think it fits in with the theme. I don't know.
I think that makes sense. That like drums are kind of like a celebratory thing that you do just before a big battle. I think I would say that makes sense.
Yeah, this is what the music has turned into. But it makes sense, yes. But do you think Nolan intended that to be the case?
I wouldn't want to speculate, but I think there's no reason to say that it wouldn't have been what he was intending. I think it's possible that it wasn't what he was intending, but I think there's good reason to think it could have been.
Okay, you can see, by the way, how happy Oppenheimer is with the success of Trinity. That is why he justified the bomb. That is why he did everything for that moment, his own personal glory. That's my interpretation anyway. I'm being quite cynical about Oppenheimer's character. But I think that's, there's only really one, well, maybe there's not one way to read him, but that's the obvious way to read him, in my opinion. Like, he comes back to Los Alamos, he receives the congratulations, and like that's what he's after. That's what he loves. So that's why he did it. And of course, we see Groves not even congratulate Oppenheimer, he just calls Potsdam. And we also then see the change in tone. We see it dramatically, shift, because then, we cut to Kitty, and then goes to black, and then there's no music and there's no celebration, and it's all quite depressing. And, the army guy says, we'll take it from here, Dr. Oppenheimer. He's lost control of this bomb. What do you think of that transition, Michael?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right that's what it's trying to say. It's kind of this pivot moment, and I guess it kind of falls into the whole thing of like the consequences of your actions. You can't really anticipate them or account for them fully. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
Well, that's the thing. You say you can't see the effects. And maybe he can see the effects, but he just ignored it. Like, he was just being willfully blind to the situation. I think that's the case. Again, like he says to Teller, trying to justify things, well, maybe all war will be over after this. Did that happen, Michael?
I don't think so.
Yeah, again, so Nolan explicitly with that lines, with Oppenheimer saying that, is kind of saying, he was wrong. It's a condemnation of this attitude that, well, thank God we built the nukes, right? Because that stopped, what happened stopped the war. It didn't actually stop World War II in real life, right? I think what made Japan surrender was Russia being close to invading them, right?
Yeah, I think it was probably a multitude of factors, but like definitely they probably would have surrendered anyway because Russia was coming in.
So, President Truman orders the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, inducing Japan's surrender. Inducing, that's an interesting word that Wikipedia said. Though publicly praised, Oppenheimer is haunted by the mass destruction and fatalities. So he was told by Groves at the same time as Truman announced it, obviously, which I like, just showing the disregard the army have for Oppenheimer. They've used him and abused him, and now, well, we don't really care. He gives this political speech, basically, at Los Alamos, Oppenheimer, and I guess realizes the gravity of what he has done. The applause and adulation he was searching for, have been wiped away and replaced with nightmares. And it's a great scene, of course, like him, obviously, seeing everybody around him just eviscerated in this nuclear explosion. It's a really horrific scene. Of course, he steps in a corpse, and then obviously we have a guy throwing up outside who is drunk. I think that's right. He's drunk. And I think that's a good analogy. Like, Oppenheimer was, I guess, drunk on power. Perhaps maybe that's what Nolan's going for. And now he feels sick, just like the guy who was drinking alcohol, and now he is being sick. It's. I think. Do you think that is the analogy Nolan's going for there?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah. I think that's what he's saying again. Like he had this power, or he had this adulation. He was feeling really good. When you drink, that's the case. And then now he's sick afterwards because. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done that, Oppenheimer. Maybe you shouldn't, but he was chasing the applause, and now the applause haunts him. Yeah, it is a real case of like eyes were bigger than your stomach, I guess. But you know that phrase. But
be careful what you wish for.
Yes. So Truman now. Well, actually, let's talk before Truman. Let's talk about the fact there were no victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki shown. This was a controversy at the time, Michael. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do. Yeah, everyone was talking about it.
Do you think it was the right thing to show no victims of Hiroshima?
I think that it's one of those things where ultimately it's like an artistic decision to put the focus on, whatever, to put the focus on what was going on from Oppenheimer's perspective. And like basically it could have gone either way and it would have been okay. Like if they'd shown the victims, like I don't think it would have made the movie worse. But I think the obvious argument for not showing them is that it allows the movie to be almost more, to kind of put you in the mindset of the kind of callousness. So I think that kind of works in terms of, I kind of already said I don't really like when movies are super moralistic, and I think we don't need to see like a load of Japanese people suffering. I think if you're like an intelligent person, you can watch the movie and understand that, and I imagine you're probably going to agree here, understand that the movie's, being critical of this decision, and I think the movie presents enough to understand that obviously what they're doing is objectionable.
Yeah, so Justin Chang staunchly defended Nolan's accurate depiction of how Oppenheimer could not see the true victims of his work. Again, it's accurate. Chang wrote that instead of satisfying representational completists by detouring to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Nolan treats them instead as a profound absence, an indictment by silence. And that is a really good phrase for it. So let's talk about his meeting with Truman now, Michael. So another critical moment of the film was the meeting in which Truman called Oppenheimer a crybaby. So Nolan wanted to convey the scene from Oppenheimer's perspective and felt it was a massive moment of delusion, a huge turning point for Oppenheimer in his approach to trying to deal with the consequences of what he'd been involved with, while also underscoring that it is a huge shift in perception about the reality of Oppenheimer's perception. He wanted to execute a quick tonal shift after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, desiring to go from the highest triumphalism to the highest high to the lowest low in the shortest amount of screen time possible. Yeah, again, we see this phrase is used a few times, the power brokers in Washington. We see how they think, how they act. They aren't concerned about, the morals of the bomb. Oppenheimer realizes who he's been working for and is like, oh God, what have I done? Again, he was haunted before, and now he's really haunted. I like the line, of course, where he says, I have blood on my hands. And Truman, why does Truman hate that line so much, Michael?
Because he has blood on his hands too.
Well, Truman thinks he only has blood on his hands. Like, Oppenheimer doesn't. Like, Truman says he was the one who dropped the bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he realizes that Oppenheimer, I think, has this massive ego by saying this. Like, I have blood on my hand. I'm the father of the atomic bomb. This was my doing. And Truman's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I was the one who dropped the bomb. If anyone should have blood on their hands, it's me.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's just, you're dealing with these creatures in Washington who are just, like, evil, basically. Who are just, like, not normal. Like, they are... they are different. And again, it's weird that Christopher Nolan, I think that's what Christopher Nolan's going for. It's weird that he would have this such strong condemnation of people like Harry Truman, but that is the right take. And I'm pleasantly surprised. I think he's saying this take. Let's talk about, after the war, of course. So Teller's hydrogen bomb receives renewed interest amidst the Cold War. AAC chairman Lewis Strauss resents Oppenheimer for having publicly humiliated him. He also believes that Oppenheimer denigrated him during a conversation Oppenheimer had with Einstein in 1947. So he decides to go after him. And the thing is, this is one of the issues I had with this movie. Because it's meant to be this twist, right? Like, somebody stabbed Oppenheimer in the back. Well, somebody, gave this guy Borden this file, his security file, and then Borden contacted the FBI and came to new conclusions. Like, somebody did this. Who would want to do it? Who would want to fuck over Oppenheimer? Oh, it's the only other main character in the movie who we see doesn't like Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a great twist, is it? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, and I just don't know why Nolan really, because that twist is built up. You don't need to build up the twist. You don't need to do that. So it was just unnecessary. So, in 1954, wanting to eliminate Oppenheimer's influence, Strauss orchestrates a private security hearing before a personal security board concerning Oppenheimer's Q clearance. However, it becomes clear that the hearing has a premeditated outcome. This is good because it shows, the McCarthyism on display. This movie also condemns McCarthyism and how Oppenheimer was treated in that 1954 hearing. Again, the hearings show how the US government can destroy lives if it wants to, And we see Emily Blunt, of course, stand up to one of the lawyers. Well, are they lawyers? I'm not sure.
Oh, they're something. I mean, they make a big point about it's not technically a trial, so maybe they're not technically lawyers. But
yeah, I think they are lawyers probably. But yeah, again, this is a condemnation of McCarthyism. This is a condemnation of the way the U.S. government went after people who were viewed as communists or maybe associating with communists, and it was just ridiculous. And people didn't get fair hearings. And this is, of course, because of Lewis Strauss's vindictiveness, but it shows again how bad the US government is, which I'm almost supportive of movies showing this. Anything to say, Michael?
No, I think you covered everything there.
Right,
I was just gonna say the scene of the wife was a pretty badass scene. I did notice that when it was happening. I was like, pretty cool.
Yeah, Emily Blunt as well there. So again, we have two things happening in the final 40 minutes. We have again, the US government being exposed as this, place where, again, there is no justice, and the McCarthyism was ridiculous. And we also see Oppenheimer basically try to become this martyr. We see these things happening at the same time. Yes, it's wrong what the US government are doing to Oppenheimer, but also, again, this movie can, it's nuanced. Two things can be happening at the same time. He's not fighting, and I think Kitty, his wife, says a line earlier on in the movie which sums my feelings up well on Oppenheimer, where she says to him after Gene Tatlock commits suicide, you don't get to commit the sin and then have us all feel sorry for you.
Yeah, I like that line too, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the case with Oppenheimer. He's committed the sin, and he wants people to feel sorry for him that he committed the sin. Like he's haunted, by what he has done, by his brilliance, and he wants to be a martyr. But like the only way he knows how to feel sorry for what he did is become this martyr, and he wants people to feel sorry for him because he's got such a massive ego. Like that, he wants to be very depressed and like, oh God, I can't believe what I did. And it's that's why he's not putting up a fight. Like what I take from this movie is Oppenheimer is just a complete coward. And I don't know. Do you feel the same way about him?
No, yeah. I found him especially frustrating in this scene.
Yeah, and again, his cowardice is just exposed because there's this H-bomb talk, and the H-bomb talk happens in the actual hearing, and then when he's talking, of course, to Strauss at the AEC committee hearing like years earlier. So Oppenheimer says, we shouldn't commit all our resources to building the H-bomb, but in reality, he has, taken a moral opposition to it. He's just too cowardly to say it, and again, then when we get to the hearing for his security clearance, he's been bombarded by that lawyer. Do you remember that scene where it all goes to white?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, what's the difference? When did you develop these moral scruples? Yes, and the reality is he was always probably against, like he doesn't want to be participating in a genocide, but for him, the overwhelming thing that again blinded everything, blinded what he thought of the future was he wanted to be the guy who was the father of the atomic bomb. Because there's this line from Strauss, where he says, he's talking about Oppenheimer, and Strauss says, he talks about putting the nuclear genie, back in the bottle, but of course Strauss is making the point that Robert Oppenheimer, if he could do it all over, he'd do it the same. He never once said he regrets Hiroshima. And I think that's true, generally, because that's what he wants to be most of all. He wants to be the star of the show. So these moral scruples will only, I guess, develop after he's already got what he wanted. Then he can, morally equivocate on these issues. And that's the point Strauss was making. And I think, the movie is agreeing with Strauss, certainly with these scenes. Because, yes, what is happening to Oppenheimer is ridiculous, this McCarthyism. But at the same time, this is a condemnation of Oppenheimer. This is what this movie is saying. Like, yes, he didn't regret Hiroshima. He would do it all the same over again. And these scruples only develop after he's done, after he's become the father of the atomic bomb. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely agree. Like the logic of that scene where he's getting interviewed and he's like clearly on edge or whatever is because he's basically being disingenuous in, you say, he's saying it's a moral thing, but really he's kind of just a coward. Yeah,
well, again, No, but he is just a coward, and he wants to be, this glorious figure. He wants to be this American Prometheus. He wants to, be the most important man who ever lived. That's what another line Strauss said. That's what he wants to be, and he got that. So, and that matters to him more than anything else, more than his moral scruples. Strauss completely nails Oppenheimer. He absolutely knows who this guy is, but of course Strauss is also wrong. But that's the great thing about the movie. It's like nuanced. It's like characters can be right about something, characters can be getting screwed over, but also they themselves are cowards. Or if a character is right about another character, they themselves also did a bad thing. Strauss shouldn't have set up that committee hearing to basically go after Oppenheimer. So. Teller testifies that he lacks confidence in Oppenheimer, and of course the blood revokes Oppenheimer's clearance. Another line in the movie which I like is the bigger the star, the more violent the collapse. And Oppenheimer's downfall gets parallels the physics he helped to discover. I don't know. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah, so in 1959, during Strauss's Senate confirmation hearing for Secretary of Commerce, Hill testifies about Strauss's personal motives in engineering Oppenheimer's downfall, resulting in the Senate voting against his nomination. Nolan searches, of course, for drama. He had to include it in this movie, and that's what I love about Nolan in general. Like, he searches for these moments because, it's sometimes real life is dramatic, and if you're making a movie about something that happened in real life, it better be dramatic, otherwise there's no point in making the movie. Of course, Strauss has this idea that Oppenheimer and Einstein talks about him, which I really don't know why he'd think that, honestly. Maybe that's another flaw in the movie, because Einstein seemed preoccupied with something Oppenheimer said. Why would Oppenheimer Strauss is like, oh, Oppenheimer turned the scientist against me, when maybe his actions turned the scientist against him. Like, how can he not come to that conclusion? But whatever, the point is that the 1947 conversation never mentioned Strauss because they were discussing something more important. Again, these Washington power brokers, these people, they're so concerned about themselves, so concerned about, getting the upper hand on one another, getting into these cabinet, positions and, looking good, that they don't see the bigger picture. And like Einstein and Oppenheimer were seeing. So Oppenheimer instead expressed his somber belief that they had indeed started a chain reaction, a nuclear arms race that would destroy the world. And that's a great ending. I don't know what you think,
that is
Michael.
a really good line. Yeah, I like that.
They started a chain reaction. We haven't mentioned that phrase, but of course that's what happens in physics.
Yes.
And there you go.
It's kind of like a good... I don't know if pun's the right word, but obviously taking this physics concept and applying it to what's actually a societal chain reaction.
Yeah, and maybe, look, we haven't destroyed ourselves yet in the year 2024. Maybe that will happen. And that's the chain reaction is ongoing.
Yeah,
it's ongoing.
They mention Fermi at one point in the movie, I think. Do you remember they mentioned a guy called Fermi?
Yeah.
Do you know there's something called the Fermi paradox?
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, basically it's like the one of the or kind of like solutions, kind of quote unquote, to the paradox is that basically all intelligent civilizations eventually destroy themselves. So that would make sense in terms of like being with the movie.
Yes, absolutely. So let's conclude now, Michael. I'll just go first quickly. And I'll say, I think this movie is fantastic. I think, all the themes we've talked about, the paradox theme, for instance, that's one which I remember. The fact that Oppenheimer, is this very interesting character, and we see him, of course, getting railroaded. That's wrong. But we see him being a coward. That's wrong. There's just so much stuff in every single scene of the movie. There's so many themes. And this is the thing with Nolan, which he loves to do. And perhaps think like in some of his movies, like The Prestige, for instance, there's too much of this kind of stuff. The movie is saying too much, but this, like, it's 3 hours long, but I really don't think the movie is saying too much, maybe because of its length. But I really like, this. It's such a well constructed movie. It's so well done. There's maybe just a couple of issues I have with it, but I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, so I think I'm like not as massive of a fan of Christopher Nolan in terms of like there's actually not so many of his movies that I really like. So I think there's definitely a subjective disagreement. It's actually interesting.
No, that's Michael. That's the same for me.
Yeah, okay.
This is why this movie is so much better than all the rest of his movies, I think. Or maybe not all the rest of them, but this is like his magnum opus, I think. And I was so impressed watching this movie. It's like, wow, this is a Nolan, like it's still a Nolan movie, you can tell. But like for you, this was him coming into his own, or maybe him coming above his own. Okay, maybe, yeah.
It's interesting actually because there's a quote by a French aeronautical engineer during World War II. He said, "A designer knows he's achieved perfection, not when there is nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away." And I think that's like my one problem with this movie, and this is where I think you definitely disagree with me. But I think this movie has a lot of stuff going for it. But I also think my experience of watching it was there was like a lot of stuff where I was like, I don't really need this. And I do think that, again, maybe this is something that will change if I like return back to this movie. But right now I'm not massively enthused about turning back to it, so I can't really give it into the 9 territory. I was honestly only going to give it a middling 7, which you might be, But again, right now, like I was kind of watching, I was like, yeah, it's good, but I'm not like wild about the idea of watching it again. Maybe I think at some point I will watch it again, and maybe I'll be like, yeah, okay, there is actually a lot more here. But your
argument is, I guess there's too much stuff.
Yeah, which is pretty much what you were saying. You were saying that that's the thing you can imagine, but you don't agree with it.
No, well, that's the thing. All that stuff I think is good because all that stuff is interesting. And in some Nolan movies, he does put too much stuff in, and I think The Prestige is a good example of that. But this movie, it's like there is a lot of stuff going on. I think it's not jam packed, perhaps because of the 3-hour runtime. And I really like the themes and what the message is and what he's trying to say, and everything. It's just it's so good. It's almost a 10 out of 10. So what do we do next week, Michael?
Next week, as we kind of already said, we are doing what's it called? Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Yeah, so join us for that next week. This has been Oppenheimer. By the way, everyone's going to agree with me when it wins all the Academy Awards. So I just want you to know that. And of course, the Academy always gets it right. Yeah, that is true. Sometimes the Academy, whenever we disagree, the Academy is always on your side. Yeah, so who have you been, Michael? I've been Michael. I've been Luke. Thanks for listening to our review of Oppenheimer, and goodbye. Goodbye.